Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. We're coming to you at about 9:25. It is Monday, March 11th. The Dallas Mavericks just beat the Chicago Bulls 127-92. I'm joined, as always, by Josh Bowe. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Still adjusting to daylight savings time. So I appreciate these Mavericks games ending early. It's not even 9:30 local time. Like I feel like a broken record every time we start these shows. We talk about how early it is because they just don't play a lot of late games lately. So, but whatever, man, I like it.
Yep. They play the game. The game tipped off at some point after 7 because the NBA games never actually tip off when their supposed television start time is. So the game tipped off probably at around 7:15 Central Standard Time and was over with by 9. This was probably one of the shortest NBA games that we've experienced this year, and the Mavericks just. They came out early in the first quarter and punched the Bulls right in the mouth. 44-16 opening quarters, led by Luka Doncic's 15 points. I think he had 7 and 6, but I don't remember if it was 7 and 7 rebounds and 6 assists or the other way around. And the game was kind of over.
Yeah, you want to talk about shortest games of the NBA this season? Technically, well, not technically, but figuratively, this game ended after 12 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it was it. The only interesting. I mean, there were a lot of fun things, and I think we should sort of talk about that for a minute. But the only interesting thing of note from this game came from the fact that Luka Doncic got hilariously close to chasing down his 7th straight 30-point triple double. He got to 27 points, and then proceeded to kind of not venture past the volleyball court line and just take asininely long 3-pointers. He shot 23 shots tonight. He shot 15 threes, and some of his threes were just atrocious. Laugh out loud. Why are you taking these threes? He still shot 40% three. Luka Doncic, everyone, the most ridiculous player in the NBA, and there really isn't a comparison point at this point. I saw a stat from I think it was Andy Bailey talking about basically the 0 to 3 foot shot, where it's Luka's shooting 82% on 100 attempts, and then Giannis is shooting 83% on 450 attempts. It's Luka, Giannis, and Jokic are just doing preposterous stuff. I don't even know how to contextualize what Luka is doing these days. And he stopped playing defense after the first quarter, but he was just a wizard with the basketball today.
Yeah, shout out to Coach Billy Donovan and the Bulls for playing maybe the worst defensive strategy I've ever seen against Luka Doncic in the 6 seasons he's played in the NBA. Luka was just please and thank you all night, because the funniest thing about Luka, the narrative that he's a ball hog, or he just has to have the ball in his hands all the time. He doesn't set his teammates up for success, needs to share the ball more. You have to get more in the weeds, and you could probably have a fair discussion about that. But the 500-foot view of it is just so silly, because he wants to pass. I think he likes passing more than he likes scoring, and he likes scoring a lot, but he loves being double teamed. I really do. I really think he does not care at all about teams putting 2 on the ball on him in the pick and roll, because he can make every pass from every angle. It doesn't matter where he is on the floor. He can find the open guy or hit that hockey assist pass to the right to the guy to get to the next guy. The Bulls did not cover the roll man at any point tonight, and it was
at all.
I don't know if it was laziness. I did hear that this was their first home game after a long West Coast road trip, and if you've been following the NBA for some time, that's always a bad night for the home team because they're just getting back in from a long trip. They're tired.
Right.
They're a little groggy. So they looked that, but like I don't know if that was just ineptitude. I don't know if that was being told to them. It might have been because the Bulls also doubled Luka a lot the first time the Mavericks played. Luka only had 18 points, which was a season low. But the Mavericks won that game. I believe that was another blowout when, they won 114-105, and Luka had 10 assists in that game. So it was bizarre. They did not even attempt to tag the roll man in the pick and roll, and consequently, Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford combined to go 20 of 21 from the floor and score 42 points. It was remarkable. Like it was a combination.
Like, that's not real. That's not a real thing. And that just happened in an NBA game.
Yeah. Your two starting centers combined to go 20 of 21 from the floor.
I mean, Gafford has scored how many straight field goal attempts?
I think he's at 27
or 28, I think.
Yeah.
Which is a franchise record. And they said something on the broadcast. I was watching the Bulls broadcast. I think they said it was in the neighborhood of the longest record of straight field goals since like 1996.
So so it's since 96, 97 is what they call the start of the play-by-play era when they were tracking the play-by-plays and box scores. He's got the most consecutive made since then. And then the longest unofficial streak is, of course, Wilt Chamberlain, who apparently made 35 in a row back in the late 60s. So he's getting close to that. He has another night like tonight. He's going to have that record.
What in the world? Like This is, and so it's like you look at Luka's stat line, and again, I do want to focus on the centers, but Luka had 14 assists and 2 turnovers. One of his turnovers was a 60-yard pass that basically would have hit Lively right in the bucket. Like he is, kind of an over the shoulder, just catch, and he would have been able to dunk it. But Alex Caruso got his hand in there last second. I mean, we're just talking about a guy operating at a different level. And the thing I don't understand is we spent the better part. So the Mavericks lost 5 of 6 games before this 3-game win streak, and in those 5 and 6 games, Josh spent a great deal of time explaining how other teams aren't doubling Luka anymore because they want him to work on offense. They are fine. They were essentially fine with Luka scoring 35 to 40 points a game because he exhausted himself and was bad on defense, which is just. It's a thing because he's having to score so much. He was not given the same amount of energy. They were targeting him on the other end, and then basically try to see if by sitting on all the other Maverick counters, they'd have a chance to run away with things, and that happened with multiple games. And I just can't. I don't understand what Donovan's coaching staff is doing. Be like, you know what? We're just going to double Luka 35 feet from the basket and see what happens.
Double Luka 35 feet from the basket and not guard Gafford or Lively. Like it's one thing. Like the Mavericks didn't make a bunch of threes. Like they didn't beat this defense by making a bunch of threes on the back end rotation, which would almost make sense. It was literally like 1 or 2 passes and they would get dunks. They made 28 points. They had 28 shots made in the restricted area. They were 28 of 36 in the restricted area. They scored 60 points in the paint. I think they had 20 points in the paint in the first quarter, which the Mavericks don't score a lot in the paint. Like that's an absurd number for this Mavericks team. So yeah, this is one of those things like Kirk, we've talked about before, like regular season basketball is almost a different sport from playoff basketball because these teams do not practice. They do not scout the same intensity level. And that's no better example is this game. Because if this was a playoff game, after if this was, I don't know, if this had an importance of a playoff game, there would absolutely be a defensive strategy. But the Bulls play this way normally, and they're not going to change for one game because there's 82 of these regular season games and they don't have time to practice. And the scouting reports are not as complete. It's just so obvious this game. But I mean, hey, that's the Bulls' problem. The Mavericks were like, all right, credit for the Bulls opened the door, but the Mavericks still had to walk through it, and they did so with a violent fury.
And there's something to that. The Mavericks play. Let's see here. They play today's Monday, so they play.
Party's over. Next 3 games.
Yeah, the next 3 games are Warriors, Thunder, Nuggets. The Nuggets are currently getting their butts beat by a Raptors team that is the longest tenured Raptor. I learned this fact via the SB Nation editors chat. The longest tenured Raptor to see minutes tonight is Grady Dick. So the Raptors are in a very hilariously dark place. And yet, let me see here. They are currently up on the Nuggets by 16. So I'll just, basically just put this in I'm really glad we're not playing the Nuggets next game. So the Mavericks have this kind of brutal, they have a 2-game stretch here. They play the Warriors on Wednesday and then the Thunder on Thursday, which is a late game, but that's, it's up the road. So I'm not really too particularly worried about that. And then they play the Nuggets on a Sunday afternoon game. The Warriors are currently, who are they playing tonight?
They're playing the Spurs. They're up on this. They're going to beat the Spurs.
Yeah.
They already did. They already beat the Spurs by 10.
Yeah. By about 10 Curry's points. Hurt. Curry's hurt. That's right. So that'll be like the Mavericks. You don't want to sit here. Like I kind of wrote this in the game thread today. You don't want to sit here and go like this game is a must win, but the Mavericks have to stack wins where they can. Coming out of All-Star break looking like warmed over vomit is just not. It's going to haunt them because they're teams that have harder records, i.e. the Suns, keep winning, and the Mavericks are just sort of hanging out now, and they're kind of at the mercy of everybody else because they do have a tough schedule to go. I mean, they're 1 game back from the Suns, 2.5 games back from Phoenix, so I don't think is going to go anywhere. If a 2-game slide puts the Mavericks back at the 9-10 area. The Warriors are like essentially the 7 through 10, or really 6 through 10 is kind of a toss up now. The Rockets are firmly back at 16 games, or I'm sorry, they're basically 5 games out of a play-in position. So it becomes an instance of, who needs to win a game. And the Mavericks are in a driver's seat for a solid play-in position is what I'll say right now. And they just cannot afford any lapses. So if the Warriors are going to be without Curry, they need to put that team away. They have to, because they still play the Warriors 2 more times to finish the season after that, I'm pretty sure. And then if you look at the standings, they might play them in the play-in game. It's not to kind of super duper worry about these things, but that's the sort of thing that I think we kind of got to start looking ahead to, even though there's 19-ish 18-ish games on the schedule.
Yeah, I mean every game counts. And to be honest, this little 3-game winning streak they're on, this is why I think people gave me grief for it online, and I think I talked about it after our Miami game. Because we didn't talk between, we don't really get the chance to talk, at least on the podcast, between games. But in the day off before the Miami game, after the last Pacers loss, when it was basically, the vibe from the fan base and even some media, it was like starting to feel like the season was going down the drain. And, you lose 5 of 6. So I'm not trying to deny that wasn't bad. But all 5 losses were teams that had a 500 or that were above 500. And the Mavericks, against teams 500 and above, they're 16-23. So they're not good, and they weren't good before that stretch against winning teams. They were below. They had a below 500 record against winning teams before this 5 out of 6 stretch where they lost to a bunch of good teams, and they're now 21-5 against below 500 teams. So I wasn't pulling the fire alarm just yet because they hadn't really dropped a truly disappointing game.
Right.
Aside from maybe the Philly game. Philly without Embiid is not a great team, so that one definitely sticks in your craw a little bit. But the other 4 losses were to good teams that are playing good basketball right now. So until the Mavericks lose some games against teams, like drop 2 out of 3 to teams that they should win. Like if they would have lost to Detroit, or if they would have lost to this Bulls team,
right.
then you start getting worried. But like for the most part, the Mavericks have taken care of business, and I know people like to cite that game against the Grizzlies that they lost, that game against the Pelicans when the Pelicans were missing like their 4 best players. But the record's the record. They're 21-5 against teams below 500. They're doing what they're supposed to do.
And that has not been a hallmark of the Luka Doncic era.
They were 15-16 last season against teams below 500.
The flip side of that is they're kind of ass against really good teams, which is really annoying because it makes having it, it makes any sort of, could the Mavericks do thing X conversation very hard to have because they just haven't surprised anyone.
Right. It makes the how far can they go in the playoffs conversation a little bleaker.
But that's just a conversation.
Right.
It's like I think
some people thought the season was kind of over after that Pacers game, that second Pacers loss. And it was I just never felt that. Like, unless you think the Mavericks making the playoffs in the first round or making the play-in is bad, which we can have another larger discussion about, like where they should be with Luka in his 6th season and being as good as he is. Right. But just in terms of like this season and getting past last season and being better than they were last season, which is admittedly not a very high bar to climb because they were very bad last season. They had 38 wins. They're 1 win away from last season's win total, by the way. 38 wins last season. So to me, this season was all about just get past last season. Like, I didn't really have huge expectations for them to make like the Western Conference Finals or winning a second round or winning a first round even, just because of where the team was at. Like, it's hard. It's hard to go from what they were last season to fixing all that in one summer and one trade deadline and being a contender right away. So I understand that people want this team to be farther along with Luka and where he is and how old he is. But like, just in terms of this season, it just didn't feel like the bottom was going to completely fall out with the way they've been playing.
Yeah, no, that's correct. Okay, let's take a short break here. If you guys could do me a favor and go ahead and like the stream. We are showing a hilarious number of viewers in the video stream, and that is because of a Twitter bug. But that's okay. If you want to, subscribe to this show, I would very much appreciate it. While you're down there hitting the like button and the subscribe button, Josh and I go live after every game. I'm trying to have my secondary fan show where you guys can participate after every game, but unfortunately, baby related hijinks are making that very difficult. So I'm not going to be able to have one tonight. If anybody wants to know, you can send me a message. I'll tell you what's going on. It's fine, but it's just exhausting. Let's see here. If you are listening on an audio stream, if you could go ahead and hit that subscribe button, tell your friends, tell your enemies. Josh and I like having as many people listen to the show as possible. We will continue to do this straight on through the regular season, and probably obviously when the Mavericks make the playoffs, we'll go extra hard because that's when things get real fun. I'll pause right now for a brief insertion of audio ads in the podcast feed, and then Josh and I will be right back. Okay, so I'm kind of looking at different minute distribution. This is another really fun one for kind of our theory the other night, where you're talking about who's playing what. You got Jones with 16 minutes. You got Kleber with 18 minutes. I'm sorry, you got Hardaway with 18 minutes, and that includes some time in junk time when the game was done. You got Josh Green with 23, Dante Exum with 19. The Mavericks have something here. I'm very interested to see when the games really, really matter what the Mavericks can do in terms of who gets the minutes where, if they're going to really slow the pace down. Like, we were talking about this briefly before the break, but if you're not worried about the Mavericks in the playoffs, I get it, because they have enough guys that have shown it, and then a couple of guys that haven't ever been, to where I think playing the Mavericks would be kind of frightening for a team like, say, the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are currently reeling. I don't want to say the Oklahoma City Thunder because I think they're very good, but the Thunder are one of the teams that I think should be a little frightened by the mid-season rule changes that we have experienced, even though they haven't actually said that the rules have changed out loud. But the the Mavericks are a team right now that when they're playing right, they're a team that is to be feared.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with Luka playing how he is, I mean, I don't know how else you could not fear them, especially like the Timberwolves, who I think have a below league average offense right now. Last I checked, they were 18th. The Mavericks play really well against teams with bad offenses, even if they have good defenses, which we have seen 3 games in a row against the Heat, the Pistons, and the Bulls, who are not good offensive teams. The Mavericks, if a team can't put the Mavericks in the blender, like that's how the Mavericks really falter in games, is when teams kind of get them moving off ball, forcing them into rotations, forcing them to make decisions, forcing their best players to make defensive decisions that they do not want to make. And that doesn't happen a lot against these bad offensive teams because they can kind of relax on that end of the floor. Not to say they're not trying. I'm just saying they just don't get tested like they do against a Pacers team or a Boston team or even, Cleveland or Denver. So it just makes a big difference for how they look and then how comfortable they can be in a game. So yeah, I like the Minnesota matchup. OKC obviously has the inexperience, so that's kind of what you're banking on. They seem to get bullied in some of these big matchups against better teams. Like they've lost to the Lakers. I think they lost to the Clippers recently. So yeah, but I don't know, but then the Mavericks, they're 8 games below 500 against winning teams. So also, I don't know how that balances out. Because if they're going to be in the playoffs, they're going to do nothing but play against a team with a winning record. So we'll see how that really factors in. But yeah, the way they're doing what they're supposed. Like I'm just going to keep repeating that ad nauseum. Is they're doing what they're supposed to. And I'm going to be. I'm with you about the rotation. Like obviously, in a 35-point game, the minutes totals are going to look a little weird. Like there's no sense in a lot of guys playing heavy minutes, and Luka only played 34 because he was going for the record, which if you want to talk about, we can talk about later. But I'm curious, like Gafford, Lively, Lively was unavailable for that Detroit game. Like, what's that going to look like when those two are healthy and they're playing a tight game? Lively closed that Heat win, which was a clutch win. 2 blowouts since then. Lively didn't play in one, so we don't really know. But Gafford had 23 minutes tonight. Lively had 20. That's like the center rotation. I'm very curious to see how that looks like.
Oh, I think I can tell you what's going to happen there.
Okay. Well, what do you think?
I think he's going to put Gafford's ass on the bench and he's going to play Maxey.
Okay. And Lively too. So you think?
I just think it's what's going to happen. Like Kid cannot help himself. He simply cannot help himself. He would prefer the defensive lineup that cannot do anything versus an offensive lineup that can outpace. He can't help himself. Do you think I'm wrong?
No, he likes to go. I mean, yeah, I don't think you're wrong. He seems to have a trust in Maxey that I don't know. If they're playing, he just, he does not trust the bigs against opposing stretch bigs. Like I think that's been made abundantly clear.
I mean, like Lively is the one who should get more burn, and they just need to like whack him in the head with the newspaper before the game and be like, dude, close out to the 3-point line, because he has the feet to do it. Gafford gets put in situations where he looks absolutely terrible in space. And I don't think he's that bad in space because the man is too good around the rim. Like he's got too good a footwork. This is a coaching. This is a emphasis. This is a practice thing. And I think that Gafford might be able to become useful, but he makes these mistakes where it's like he just gets caught looking, and everybody, like folks like to argue with me. My friend, I have a guy that goes to the gym with me named Josh. He one time told me, he's like, well, it's not his fault he got in a drop situation against Maxey. And it's like, meaning Maxey of the 76ers, Tyrese Maxey. I obviously agree, but he's still there and he's got to look like not frozen. He's got to do something. And there's just been way too many situations where you look at Gafford in the tape and he's just in the wrong spot over and over. And that has me concerned because I would prefer Gafford in the wrong spot on defense and trying versus Maxey on offense in the same lineup in the right spot, essentially result 4-on-5 because Maxey's a coward who won't shoot.
Yeah, because you think at least even if Gafford is getting beat in the pick and roll against a good team with a stretch big, which they might see in the playoffs. They might not. Yeah, Maxey. I mean, Maxey is averaging 1.2 points per game in the month of March.
Like that is so hard.
And he's averaging 20. He's averaging 20 minutes a game
with Luka.
He's scored 8 points in the month of March, and he's played 6 games, 20 minutes a game. That is he's played roughly 120 minutes in the month of March, and he scored 8 points. With
that
Luka.
Should be like again. Let's just think about this here, team. We talked about how Lively and Gafford went 21 of 22 from the field. Do we think they did that because of their own individual brilliance, or because they're playing with 6'8" John Stockton? It's the second thing. If you don't know the answer off the top of your head, he gets Maxey looks. Maxey just goes fuck, and then like throws up a reverse or does something weird. He can't do it. He can't. It's not. I don't blame Maxey for that. I blame the coaching decision of being like, you know what, this guy's good at defense. We're gonna do that thing, even though it doesn't work, and it hasn't worked. So,
yeah, we'll see. And then otherwise, like that's going to be a big question down the stretch. Of obviously Gafford and Lively look great tonight. The other one is like the Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr., Dante Exum question. Like all three of those guys coming off the bench. Like what does that look like? You know,
I mean, they've got to stop throwing out Maxey and Tim at the same time.
Yeah,
because it's tough. Like, so we used to do this dumb thing in middle school. This is the visualization I have of when they put Maxey and Tim Hardaway in. It's this. Like, it's just like it doesn't do any good, and it looks stupid, and there's no I don't understand it. And kid just keeps going back to it like it's 2021. It's not. It's old.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. That's why like in a game like tonight, it's hard to judge. And Tim still only played 18 minutes and didn't play. I mean, has he hit 20 minutes in a game? He hasn't hit the 25-minute mark since February 28, and he's been right around 20 or below since then. So it is less. It's just, They got a lot. Like, this is what we were talking about before the season. We were like, they're probably going to make a trade, right? Because they have so many cards. Like, they're not going to be able to play them all, or they're going to have these weird minutes. So, because in the playoffs, you're playing 7, 8 guys tops, like maybe even 7. Like, you're not going to play Green, Hardaway, and Exum in a playoff game. Like, those guys aren't going to get 20 minutes each in a playoff game, right? Like, because where are all the other minutes? Because Luka and Kyrie are going to play 35 plus. PJ is going to play 35 plus. Like, maybe Jones gets squeezed out, but he's playing well in the starting lineup. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. They got a lot of guys that, you know, you could say whether or not they deserve minutes or not. You know, people don't think Maxey or Tim deserve minutes, and their play hasn't really shown that they should play a lot. But they're guys that are used to playing a lot. So that's a tough situation as a coach to deal with. Like, kid's going to have to figure out a way to navigate that. And maybe he doesn't have to till the playoffs start, because they're going to play enough games against bad teams where they can get away with playing these guys kind of variable minutes and fluctuate minutes and manage minutes, because I'm sure they don't want Exum playing a ton, even if he is the right answer for a lot of what's ailing the Mavericks. Like, you know, why does he need to play? You know, he doesn't need to play more than 20 minutes in a game like tonight. Yeah. So I think it's going to be about managing health, because Maxey and Exum are both kind of glass cannons, so to speak. So more Exum though. Maxey's kind of just a paper tiger right now. So I don't know. But yeah, I'll be thinking about that going into the playoffs, because you really don't play. You do not play 10-man rotations.
No,
it's like it just doesn't happen.
No, and I think a lot of this has to do with health, and has to do with, you mentioned that, and has to do with just kind of getting to the finish line. And quite candidly, that's what you and I are trying to do as well. A lot of fans are like, "Why isn't Omax playing?" We got a couple of folks in the chat that want to answer that. Like, guys, Omax is not very good. I was very incorrect about him. Like, he's just not very good. Now, that doesn't mean he can't be very good, but I don't give a shit about G League stats. Like, you get 3, like the scores in those games push 150 points sometimes. Like, it is what it is. I think he could be something, but right now I'm not interested in Omax heading towards the playoffs. It's just not
right. But is there a point like you can get him time in a 35-point fourth quarter? Like, why not?
The team tonight because he's on G League assignment, and so you just I've questioned how they utilize G League assignments for a very long time. So what are you going to do here? I mean, I think there's really only one thing left to talk about tonight. No, I am flat out wrong on Omax. Okay, guys. Yeah, but he is playing. He's playing in the G League. Like it's not like he's sitting there on the bench learning nothing. Like Hardy at this point last year, folks are kind of going to misremember this, but that third 20 games of the season, so basically games 40 to game 60, Hardy was with the Mavericks a lot. He just wasn't playing very much. And then he finally started playing in those final 20 games.
Also, I don't mind Omax in the G League. Like that's good.
If you're gonna like at least get reps, like he's learned, like he doesn't have a great shot. So if he's getting opportunities to shoot, do it.
Yeah,
like he's a fine one-on-one defender. He's not a great team defender, but that's okay. But he's huge. Like I'm more interested in Omax for Summer League at this point. I'm just kind of like putting that to the side because again, if you're going to run an 8-man rotation, it's not like Omax. In the playoffs, Omax is not cracking that. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. I know what you mean for sure.
So the last thing to talk about, and this is kind of the consternation of the various factions of Mavs fans who just can't handle certain players on our team. And granted, I've been like that with certain guys, so it's not making fun of anybody in particular. But this was Kyrie Irving's like nth game in a row. Now you check Kyrie, like tonight he finished 27 minutes, 14 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block, 1 turnover, just kind of a nothing burger of a game. They didn't need him. Nope. And that's what this is probably Kyrie's worst statistical game of the last 7 or 8. But if you've watched the Mavericks games closely, Kyrie has had really rough stretches. And you mentioned this 2 games ago. This is like the most games he's played consecutively since 2018. Yep. So I think it's sort of, in hindsight, I am questioning. And guys, like the first day of Ramadan was today or yesterday. Sorry, March 10th was when Ramadan started. So like all these people are like, Kyrie's fasting. He's not been good for like 7 or 8 games. Like, what are we doing here? Like, his statistical line ends up being okay because he'll hit some big shots, but he's not been that super electric guy who's taken over portions of the game. That's okay. The fact that the Mavericks haven't needed it during the 3-game win streak is a big win. But I say all this to get to the point of the Mavericks know this. They know he hasn't been playing great. I'm a little surprised they didn't sit him in one of these 2 games. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought they could have one of these Detroit, Chicago. Yeah, one of these 2 games would have been a good spot for him. He's playing. I mean, because he missed so many games earlier in the season, he's not going to get to I don't think he's going to get to 60 games played this season. Although he might. I don't have the math in front of me, but it's going to be tough for him to play 60 games this season. But yeah, the consecutive games, and I think his minutes have been pretty high. Like he's been in
the 30s. Yeah.
He's been a 36, 35 minute per game guy since February. So like not only is he playing consecutively a lot, he's on the floor a lot.
Yes. And I'm betting he has full autonomy over all of this because he's not injured. So it's not like he's going to willingly take a night off. But I'm also just sort of the opinion where it's like, what if they did just give him an extra day? Because they got a tough back-to-back coming up, and they're going to need him for both games. And it's a little interesting. It's second-guessing now that everything's over. It's not something I'm particularly worried about. I've mentioned for 3 podcasts now, I think like a breakout game is coming where he's going to go like 6 of 8 from the floor. From like the 3-point line or something. I mean, I was looking at some numbers with a friend of mine from named Jared Dubin, who writes kind of all across the internet. And you actually, Josh, it was you specifically who put this idea about movement shooting in his mind. Like Kyrie's shooting this season is absolutely fucking ridiculous. You might not agree with me when you're looking at the base stats, but his EFG is nuts. His 3-point shooting percentage is nuts. his shots in different situations, particularly in let's just call it, I'm just gonna be candid. It's data that you and I don't have access to, but are like the teams have access to. Like Kyrie is having a monster offensive year by some of the more advanced stat stuff. So I'm not worried at all. It's just one of those things that I wish that when you see him just kind of look like burnt toast at moments like he was tonight, it's like, all right, just like he got his 14 points. He got some shots to go down to start the third quarter. Like take him out and just let him be, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think they'll find a night for him hopefully soon. And I bet you he has that breakout game after that. And to kind of bounce off what you were talking about, like these aren't as advanced as our friend has, but just using the public facing data.
Okay.
He's 45% on catch and shoots.
That's ridiculous.
That's really good, considering he takes about 3.5 of them per game.
That's like Kyle Korver crap.
He's 39% on pull-up threes.
That's
which is really good.
That's
and he also takes about 3.5 of those a game. He's 45% on pull-up twos, which is very good. Very, very good. So like, yeah, his jumper has been outrageous. Like it's pretty, I mean, and he was kind of doing that last season too. Like,
yes.
Since he's gotten to Dallas, I mean, let me see if I can find it. Because I'm pretty sure if he would have played all of last season in Dallas, he would have set his career high for true shooting, which is kind of nuts considering it was his like 10th year in the league or whatever, and he's been an all NBA player. Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. He's right. This streak, I think, has kind of knocked him out, but he's at 59.8% true shooting. He was almost at 60. I mean, I think he was at 60 for most of the year. And he takes all jump. Like, he takes so many jumpers. Like, to be 60% true shooting and shooting as many jumpers as he does is pretty ridiculous.
This is not a thing for a 6'2", 170-pound, like 31-year-old.
Yeah, like he did it in Boston. Like he got close. He had a year in Brooklyn where he was over 60 true shooting, but mostly he's for his career he's at 58. So this isn't that much higher. But like the fact that he was over 60. Because he doesn't go to the rim as much as he used to. And he doesn't get to the free throw.
Well, and he's not a foul merchant at all.
No.
If anything, he avoids that contact at the last second that all of us hate, and then throws up an even more challenging shot. But look, we say all this to note that I think, you know, I'm fully fine with where Kyrie is. It was just he had a shockingly rough game against a team that played very little defense.
Yeah, that's fair to point out. But really, I mean, yeah, everyone else was. I'm just staring at the Gafford Lively lines. Like,
no, it's so stupid. It's so stupid.
20 of 21.
There's a contingent, and I'm just gonna do this because I don't care. Like Luka won Player of the Week. And it's because, like, I think at some point someone in the NBA front office is like, wait, this dude's been putting up 35, 10, and 10 for 4 months, and we haven't given him anything, which is true. And I'm going to talk about this for a long time because the Luka hate reaches really peak levels because when Luka does something stupid, he deserves, or rather earns, a lot of fan or people who hate him ire because it's just he's a passionate guy. He works towards that. But what Luka does for players who have very specifically limited professional basketball playing skill sets is simply absurd. Like, there was a reason why the Mavericks went to try to go get JJ Redick that one year, because even though Redick was 6,000 years old, he could still shoot. You know,
Look at what Dorian Finney-Smith's doing in Brooklyn. Look what Spencer Dinwiddie has been doing since he left the Mavericks. I don't think Reggie Bullock in the league. I think last I saw he was on.
He's
Houston.
with the Spurs, but he doesn't do anything. He's Spurs.
He's on Houston. He's on the Rockets, but he doesn't play.
Yeah. So
look at what Maxi Kleber's numbers look like before Luka and after Luka. Look at Dwight Powell. Has been in the league, is a 10-year veteran, although like I still think he would have been around maybe not that long, but Luka definitely helped extend his career, I think, a little bit. Like, it is funny because this is the narrative, like who would want to play with Luka? He holds the ball too much. And then it's like, well, look at all these guys. More goes into it. Like Dorian to get where he got, like required a tremendous amount of hard work on his part to go from a 4-year college player, undrafted free agent. Like that's not to discount what these guys do on their own, but still, like the way Luka has helped these guys get paid. To me, it's more like I'm shocked that more people don't want to play with him. Now, maybe stars don't want to because that's difficult, but anyone that's like a role player, like I would be lining up.
Like you're like a Royce O'Neal type.
Yes.
You know, like somebody, it's just like I would be like, you know what? I mean, Derrick Jones Jr. did it. He had a bigger contract that he could have opted into with Chicago. And
now he's probably going to get his next contract after this one. I mean, it will probably be bigger than what he could have gotten before.
I mean, I talked a little bit about this last podcast, but I'm just going to do it again. So since right before All-Star break, NBA score, basically since February 1st, NBA scoring is down. Fouls are down. Free throws are down. Do you want to know what remains up?
Luka scoring.
Luka's scoring. Luka Doncic is scoring nearly 37 points a game. Actually, over 37 points a game, though it might be down tonight because he was only at 27. This is just like, we have witnessed a lot as Mavericks fans, some historic stuff. We've been on the bad end of Kobe and Shaq. We watched a lot of Tim Duncan. We watched Kevin Garnett be a kind of singular force. We watched the rise of Dwayne Wade and LeBron James, this sort of thing. We've been on the bad end of a lot of history. But we've also watched Dirk do crazy stuff. And then we have Luka, who is really in a class of his own. I mean, it's so ridiculous how easily he scores the basketball. If he played, like, he's going to go to the Olympics this summer if Slovenia makes the Olympic qualifier stuff. And if he's playing anything remotely like how he's playing now, I want to put money on Slovenia in the finals because he is shooting the ball with such preposterous efficiency. I mean, 37 points on not a lot of free throws, 52% from the floor, and 40% from three. He was a bad three-point shooter his rookie year, you guys. He was bad.
He was a bad three-point shooter for like his first 3 years.
He was a bad three-point shooter tonight, and he still shot 40% from three.
Yeah.
I'm being a little ridiculous, but I just like I've made it an effort because I don't think we talk about how crazy good this dude is.
No, and like I need to write about this, so I'm going to see if I can get to it this week. No, like he's shooting 42.7% on catch and shoot threes. Not even like his previous career high was his rookie year, and he was shooting like 37. He's shooting 1.9 of them per game, also a career high, which doesn't seem like a lot, but for a dude that plays like Luka does, taking about 2 catch and shoot threes a game is huge for him, and to be making those. And he's also shooting 36.8% on pull-up threes. That's also a career high. So like we've talked before about like, man, if he ever starts making his threes, like it's over. Like, how are you guarding him when he makes threes? Because like, remember his sophomore season when he had that ridiculous, his first all NBA season where he was shooting like 72% in the restricted area. And we were like, dude, what is next for him? And I think he shot like 31% on threes that season. Mm-hmm. And we kind of made peace as he hovered around 33, 34. I think he got the
you're like, okay, he's going to be just below average.
Yeah,
and we'll figure it out.
And he's going to shoot him, like he's going to shoot some threes that we don't like, but he's going to use it because he needs defenders to be honest on the perimeter so he can set up his in-between and mid-range game. Because if teams don't think he can shoot threes, then why would they guard him at the three-point line? So like I kind of made peace with that. And then now, he's 38% from three. Like now it's not just a shot to set up something better. Like it is the shot. Like it is what's better. Like it's pretty ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, he was 32 rookie season, 31 second season, 35, 35, 34, now 38. On a career high attempts, by the way, he's gone from 7 to 8, 8, 8, 8 to 10 threes a game. So
which I hate to a certain degree because I'm just like, man, you get inside that 10-foot area and you're murder.
I know. He's shooting 75% in the restricted.
Okay, quick shout out to our friend TGK TV. Posted his link in the chat. He shouted us out with a tip. Appreciate you, buddy. And I think we should probably close up just because we're going to be back here on Wednesday and Thursday. I signed into I've not done shit this month because real work has been terrible. And I signed up for the late game on Thursday to recap. It'll be like it's 2019 all over again when I was staying up late while on the East Coast. So
we'll have fun.
We will have fun. Guys, this has been Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe. Thank you so much for hanging out with Pod Maverick. I would love to do a secondary live show, but I am French toast, and the baby is due for a dream feed soon, and we've been waking up like every 45 minutes for several days now. So I am very close to that scene like in Homer Simpson in the Haunted Treehouse episode where the Shinnin, no beer and
no TV and beer.
Go something. That's me. Thanks so much for hanging out. Check out MavsMoneyball.com. Who knows what we'll put up? I don't, even though I'm in charge. We'll talk to you guys soon. This has been great. Go Mavs.